the game. But he also knew he was right. They needed the laughter to survive the fire. Chapter 8. Under the Southern Cross. The morning after the battle, the island was quiet. The admiral had left, surprisingly impressed by the combat readiness of McHale's unconventional unit. Binghamton was sulking in his office, already plotting his next move. McHale found Kate at the end of the long pier. She was wearing her dress whites, looking like an angel in the morning light. "We heard the explosions," she said, her voice thick with emotion. You thought you'd have to find a new commander to fix your refrigerator?" McHale teased, but his eyes were soft. She didn't laugh. She stepped into his arms, burying her face in his tattered, oil-stained shirt. "I thought the world had finally taken you away from me." McHale held her tight, feeling the steady beat of her heart against his. "It'll take more than a sub and a captain with high blood pressure to get rid of me, Kate." He pulled back, looking out at the vast, shimmering expanse of the Pacific. The war was far from over. There would be more battles, more traps, and more losses. But for the first time since he'd arrived at Taratupa, Quentin McHale felt he had something worth fighting for that wasn't just a code of honor or a naval regulation. For the Quentin 40, for the Quentin 40, for the Quentin 40, for the Quentin 40, for Quentin 40, for the Quentin 40, for the Quentin 40, for the Quentin 40, for. "When this is over," he said, his voice a vow, "I'm going to find that place with the chilled wine, and you're going to be there with me." Kate smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that chased away the shadows of the hospital wards. "I'll hold you to that, Commander." But for now, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, familiar object. "I believe this belongs to you." It was a garter belt. McHale burst into laughter, the sound echoing across the lagoon, a defiant signal of life and love amidst the tides of war. Epilogue. The legend of the 73. Years later, when the guns had fallen silent and the islands of the South Pacific had returned to their peaceful slumber, the legends of Taratupa remained. They spoke of a ghost ship that appeared in the mist, of an alligator who understood the value of $1, and of a captain who could never quite catch the pirates of the 73. But mostly, they spoke of a love that bloomed in the azure furnace, a love that proved even in the darkest hours of humanity, the heart can find its way home. Quentin McHale and Kate Wilson never did find that perfectly chilled wine. They found something better. They found a life built on the memories of a time when every laugh was a victory and every kiss was a prayer. And on quiet nights, if you listen closely to the wind rustling through the palm fronds, you can still hear the faint, ghostly rumble of 3 Packard engines racing toward the horizon, fueled by courage and a reckless, beautiful desire. The Emerald Horizon. Shadows over Taratupa. A novel of love, duty, and the Pacific winds. Chapter 1. The Burden of Command. The South Pacific sun was a relentless crucible, beating down upon the white sands of Taratupa with a ferocity that seemed to bleach the very soul of the island. In the stifling confines of his office, Captain Wallace Binghamton paced like a caged leopard. The air was thick with the scent of sea salt and rotting hibiscus, a cloying sweetness that mirrored the captain's escalating anxiety. "Wow, wow, wow, wow," he muttered to himself, his voice a strained rasp. He looked at the requisition forms on his desk, the ink blurring before his eyes. Garter belts. "I am the commanding officer of a vital naval outpost, and I am reduced to hunting for garter belts for the nurses." His supply officer, the hapless Lieutenant Elroy Carpenter, stood at rigid attention, beads of sweat tracking through his thick eyebrows. To Binghamton, the war was not just a conflict of steel and fire. It was a personal affront to his dignity. Every overflowing sink in the Petty Officers Club, every requisition for feminine hosiery, felt like a brick added to a wall that was slowly entombing him. "Sir," Carpenter whispered, his voice trembling. "Admiral Rafferty." The color drained from Binghamton's face. Rafferty was a legend of cold discipline, a man whose presence could wither a palm tree. In that moment, the captain felt the phantom weight of his stomach acid, a corrosive tide that he swore could start a car. He looked out the window toward the docks, where PT-73 sat nestled in the lagoon. There lay the source of his true torment, Commander Quentin Majale and his crew of misfits. They were the lost boys of Peter Pan's island, a band of saltwater gypsies who treated the Navy's regulations like suggestions written in sand. A desperate, brilliant thought sparked in Binghamton's mind. He could sidestep the Admiral's wrath and let the chaos of McHale's leadership destroy the commander in the eyes of the brass. "I'm sick, Carpenter," Binghamton wheezed, collapsing into a chair with a theatrical groan. "The supreme test. McHale and his cutthroats will run wild. They'll destroy themselves right in front of the Admiral." It was a gamble born of madness and malice, a plot that would set in motion a chain of events that none of them could have foreseen, a dance of destiny, involving royal guests, stolen fortunes, and a love that bloomed in the shadow of a jinxed boat. Chapter 2. The Acting Commander and the Nurse. When Quentin McHale received the news of his appointment as acting base commander, he didn't feel the pride of promotion. He felt the chill of a trap. Standing on the deck of the PT-73, the spray of the ocean still clinging to his rugged face, he looked at his crew. There was Ensign Charles Parker, whose clumsiness was matched only by his earnest heart, Gruber, the schemer with a silver tongue, and the rest of the boys who called the lagoon their home. "A desk job, Skip?" Parker asked, adjusting his spectacles. "You're a saltwater skipper. You'll be like a shark in a bathtub." McHale sighed, his gaze drifting toward the infirmary. There, beneath the swaying palms, he saw Lieutenant Nurse Wilson. She was a vision of starch and resilience in her white uniform, her eyes holding a depth of empathy that McHale found both comforting and terrifying. In the heat of Taratupa, their glances had often met across the muddy paths. Brief, unspoken moments of recognition between two souls, burdened by the necessity of being strong for others. As McHale took his place in Binghamton's office, the weight of the base settled on him. It wasn't just the paperwork, it was the humanity of it. The sinks were still backed up, the nurses still needed their supplies. But beneath the triviality, there was a war raging just over the horizon. In the quiet of the evening, Nurse Wilson visited the office. The ceiling fan whirred lazily, a rhythmic heartbeat in the stillness. "You look like you're carrying the world on your shoulders, Quentin," she said softly, her voice a balm to his frazzled nerves. "It's a different kind of combat, Molly," McHale replied, leaning back in the oversized leather chair. "Out on the boat, the enemy is clear. Here, the enemy is a mountain of paper and a captain who's faking a heart attack to see me fail." She walked toward him, the scent of lavender and antiseptic following her. "You won't fail, because you care about the men, not the rank. That's why I—" She hesitated, the humid air thick with unspoken words. The romance on Taratupa was a forbidden flower, stunted by the regulations of the Navy and the precariousness of their lives. A base commander and a head nurse, the brass would never allow it. But in the dim light of the office, the war felt a lifetime away. "You have to be careful," she whispered, her hand brushing his sleeve. "Binghamton isn't just watching you. The Admiral is coming, and he's looking for a reason to dismantle everything you've built here." McHale looked at her, his jaw set. "Let them come. I've survived Japanese destroyers and tropical storms. I think I can handle a few angry admirals." Chapter 3. The Sultan and the Starfire. The arrival of the Sultan of Marami was supposed to be a diplomatic feather in Binghamton's cap. The Sultan, a man of immense wealth and ancient lineage, had been rescued by McHale's crew after his plane was forced down. He arrived on Taratupa not as a refugee, but as a sovereign, accompanied by his 3 daughters, the princesses of Marami. The air on the base changed. The rough and tumble sailors, usually clad in stained dungarees, were suddenly captivated by the grace and beauty of the royal visitors. For Ensign Parker, the world stopped when he saw Princess Siri. She was a delicate blossom of the East, her eyes reflecting the starlight of 1,000 desert nights. To the Sultan, McHale was a hero of the seas. To Binghamton, who was still malingering in the hospital, the Sultan's affection for McHale was a poison. A grand dinner was arranged, a command performance beneath the banyan trees. The Sultan, impressed by the power of the PT boats insisted on a demonstration.